and welcome to Ask Aspire. We are joined today by Kaspar Roos, our CEO and founder here. And I'm going to kick straight in, Kaspar. Thank you so much for joining us. With a question about this year's DSF. Obviously, you were doing the opening keynote this year, which is fantastic. Just thought it'd be great if you could share a few pieces of what you shared there for anyone who wasn't there to hear it in person.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Lisa. So yeah, we at DSF, I basically presented, I think, an update on what we see in the markets happening today. So I think the highlight, four major trends that we're seeing. The first one, of course, digital transformation. It's a big deal in the industry. We continue to see a lot of traction, companies shifting their traditional way of producing communications to digital. So that's been a major theme. The other thing is the rise of emerging technologies, AI, machine learning. We're seeing that applied in one way to make communications easier to understand, to reduce the number of templates. So there's a lot of sort of traction with that technology, but also now we're starting to see new developments in sort of, speech recognition and taking that to the next level. So I talked about a human or a digital human. It's a sort of interactive chatbot experience based on a real avatar that sort of comes from the gaming industry, coupled with AI, speech recognition, and chatbot, and you can sort of see that we're moving more to those sort of avatars that can show human emotions and can respond more naturally to sort of interaction. So that was an interesting development. And then I also spoke quite a bit about sort of the human or the more sort of employee experience, because there's a lot of talk about customer experience, but we're now also starting to see that companies are saying, well, we actually need to make sure that we enable our staff to do their jobs while they're actually now remotely. And how do we sort of do that? Because traditionally, particularly when it comes to customer communications and experiences, you bring people together and you collaborate, or you in a team, you produce those communications. So that's another major shift that we saw in the market over the last years. And with that, we had a really interesting data point from the research. I will just only sort of show one data point here. I know we need to keep it short, but we asked because our survey takers, there were people that work in CCM at large enterprises, and we asked them if they are looking at actually changing their jobs in the next 12 months. And 24% said yes, it's very likely we're going to change jobs. So that's a huge number. And then we asked the reason, why are they changing jobs? And the key reason was actually they were being fed up with the sort of outdated software tools that prevented them from doing their jobs correctly. So that's really interesting. There's a real sort of drive now to make those tools easier to use, but also to sort of help organizations to invest in more modern technology.
Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously, I know you were presenting at DSF, but you also spent a lot of time catching up with people, other industry professionals. It'd be great to hear a bit of, interesting conversations you were having, some topics and some themes that were coming up in your conversations there.
Yeah, I think the general feedback from the sort of vendor services provider community is that the market is real changing. There's a lot of sort of, evolution. There's a shift. I think more to sort of cloud software, more to managed services. We see that the technology companies are starting to move more into services, where services companies are starting to build more technology. So there's definitely a sort of convergence happening. So that was one major trend that we've witnessed. The other one I would say is that organizations are starting to, I think, see that customer experience is now really being the sort of core thing that I need to sort of look at. And we had some interesting discussions with some end users who said, our organizations, we spend a lot of money on customer experience, improving how we sort of, present information to them. But then under the covers, there still are all those sort of antiquated processes. Yeah. And there's a lot of sort of hard work required to make it all work. And oftentimes we fail because the processes haven't been really digitally transformed. It's just the front end that's been sort of modernized. So now the opportunity is, how do you do that? And how can you sort of move some of those sort of legacy processes into sort of more modern systems? So that's another theme that came up a few times.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's always great to hear what's being discussed on the floor as well as what's being presented from the front. So that's really great. Yeah, thanks for joining, Kaspar, and thanks
Sure.
everyone else for joining us too. And
Yeah,
as always, any questions, suggestions, topics you'd like us to discuss with our analyst and consulting team as part of Ask Aspire, just let us know on the email address below or comment. Thanks so much.